This program should be viewed along with the course handbook and to support the instructor's lessons and coaching. This video reinforces material and procedures presented in the classroom. It is not intended to stand alone. The improper use of firearms may result in serious injury. The material presented in this video is intended to demonstrate the operation of firearms in accordance with safe handling techniques and an awareness of manufacturer's specifications and safety features. The Department of Justice, Justice Canada, makes no warranties whatsoever, either express or implied, oral or written, in fact or by operation of law or otherwise, regarding the safety of any firearm or the use of any safety mechanism shown in the video. Individuals should use their firearms in accordance with manufacturer's specifications and contact individual manufacturers, as each model features different safety mechanisms and some of the techniques demonstrated might not be appropriate for certain firearms. Ultimately, responsibility for firearm safety rests with the individual. The following presentation will focus on firearm safety. It will emphasize a proper and safe way in which to store, display, transport, handle, and discharge firearms. To begin our instruction of firearm safety, you must understand that rules have to be observed whenever you come in contact with firearms. The vital 4 acts are a set of rules that relate to the safe and proper way to use firearms. These 4 acts must be obeyed at all times and are fundamental to your safety and the safety of those around you. Firearm safety is not negotiable. Remember that these rules must be followed in this order. A. Assume every firearm is loaded. C. Control the muzzle direction at all times. T. The trigger finger must be kept off the trigger and out of the trigger guard. S. See that the firearm is unloaded. Prove it's safe. This introduces another important principle of firearm use: proving a firearm unloaded or proving it safe. The steps that are used to unload a firearm combine to spell the word prove. P. Point the firearm in the safest available direction. R. Remove all cartridges. O. Observe the chamber. V. Verify the feeding path. E. Examine the bore. Point, remove, observe, verify, and examine. Each step in that order contributes to prove a firearm safe. In the interest of safety, the procedures shown in this video meet or exceed legal requirements and go beyond basic firearm safety. These procedures are used by many experienced shooters. To determine the specific legal requirements for firearm safety in your province or territory, consult your provincial or territorial authorities. This video was made under controlled conditions with the utmost safety. All loading of live ammunition and shooting of firearms took place at a firing range. Later, we will discuss the safety procedures that are in force at such ranges. Firearm types. This handgun is a muzzle loader. The components used in a percussion cap muzzle loader are a ball, a wad or patch, black powder, and a percussion cap. This studio simulation is presented for instructional purposes only. The following procedure should only be done at a place where the firearm can be safely and legally discharged, and only after the firearm has been proven safe. If this was not a simulation, and the firearm was to be loaded, a percussion cap would be fired to eliminate any oils that may be present in the barrel prior to using powder. Only the required amount of powder will be poured into the barrel. Always use a volumetric measure to confirm the correct amount. Black powder must always be used with caution. Never pour black powder directly from the original manufacturer's container or powder horn into the barrel. Doing so could result in detonating the entire container of powder, should burning embers remain present at the base of the bore from a previous discharge. A patch and ball are pushed to the bottom of the barrel. To fire the charge, pulling the trigger causes the hammer to drop, striking the percussion cap and creating a flame in the chamber which ignites the powder charge. This explosive black powder was the first type of gunpowder. It is still used today in shooting sports that use firearms or reproductions of firearms dating from an earlier time. The percussion cap was not put in place because it would be an unsafe practice in this simulated exercise. The explosion of black powder creates gases that force the projectile out of the barrel. Igniting this explosive black powder, as well as other demonstrations in this video, are performed by experts in controlled situations. They should not be attempted under any other circumstances. Smokeless powder is used in most modern ammunition. Unlike explosive black powder, modern smokeless powder is classified as a solid propellant. It burns rather than explodes and is therefore much safer to handle. Never interchange smokeless powder and black powder. Use them only in firearms intended for their use. Handgun actions. Handguns are generally classified by their action. There are two basic types: the revolving action and the semi-automatic action. Now, we'll examine these firearms in more detail. This is a single-action revolver. Revolvers have cylinders with chambers that may contain additional ammunition similar to a magazine. Always wear safety glasses when loading and discharging firearms. In order to prove a single-action revolver safe, point the firearm in the safest available direction. Remove the ammunition. First, open the loading gate. If the cylinder will not turn freely, pull the hammer back slowly until the cylinder can turn. The hammer should stay back. Raise the muzzle slightly and remove the ammunition, if necessary, using the ejector rod. Observe that all the chambers are empty. Verify that the feeding path is clear. Use a cleaning rod to examine the bore. The muzzle is located at the front of the barrel. This is the trigger guard, designed to prevent anything from accidentally engaging the trigger. This is the hammer. On a single-action revolver, a pull of the trigger results in a single action. The hammer falls from the full cock position. Pulling the trigger, if the hammer is not cocked, will not discharge the firearm. Information found on the data stamp and cartridge head stamp allows you to check that the proper ammunition will be used. The data stamp on the barrel of this single-action revolver indicates the ammunition to be utilized is a .44 Magnum cartridge. Correct information about the firearm's ammunition can be found on the ammunition box. To match the correct ammunition to the firearm, refer to the information printed on this ammunition box and the head stamp of the cartridge. Modern cartridges come in many different sizes and shapes. Choosing the correct ammunition is essential to the safe use of firearms. This is a double-action revolver. Like the single-action revolver, they have cylinders with chambers to hold additional ammunition, similar to a magazine. In order to prove a double-action revolver safe, point the firearm in the safest available direction. Remove the ammunition by operating the cylinder release to allow the cylinder to swing out. Operate the ejector rod to eject the cartridges. Observe that the chambers are empty. Verify that the feeding path is clear. Examine the bore. On a double-action revolver, a pull of the trigger causes two actions. It places the hammer in the full cock position and releases it. Most double actions can also be fired single action by cocking the hammer and pulling the trigger. Information found on the data stamp and cartridge head stamp allows you to check that the proper ammunition will be used. The data stamp on the barrel of this double-action revolver indicates the ammunition to be utilized is a .357 Magnum cartridge. Correct information about the firearm's ammunition can be found on the ammunition box. To match the correct ammunition to the firearms, refer to the information printed on this ammunition box and the head stamp of the cartridge. This firearm is a single-action semi-automatic handgun. It has a magazine containing additional ammunition, allowing it to fire several times between reloading. To prove a single-action semi-automatic handgun safe, point the firearm in the safest available direction. And if possible, with your particular firearm, ensure the safety is on. Remove the ammunition by operating the magazine release and dropping the magazine. Operate the slide to extract and eject any cartridge or casing from the chamber. Lock the action open. Observe the chamber to ensure it is empty. Verify that the feeding path is clear. Examine the bore. With a single-action semi-automatic, a pull of the trigger results in a single action. The hammer falls from the cocked position. After firing, the pistol stays cocked. Pulling the trigger when the hammer is in the forward position has no effect. Information found on the data stamp and cartridge head stamp allows you to check that the proper ammunition will be used. The data stamp on the barrel of this single-action semi-automatic handgun indicates the ammunition to be utilized is a .45 ACP cartridge, which stands for Automatic Colt Pistol. Correct information about the firearm's ammunition can be found on the ammunition box. To match the correct ammunition to the firearm, refer to the information printed on this ammunition box and the head stamp of the cartridge. This firearm is a double-action semi-automatic handgun. Like the single-action semi-automatic, it too has a magazine to hold additional ammunition. To prove a double-action semi-automatic handgun safe, the same procedure as used for a single-action semi-automatic handgun must be followed. Point the firearm in the safest available direction, and if possible, with your particular firearm, ensure the safety is on. Remove the ammunition by operating the magazine release and dropping the magazine. Operate the slide to extract and eject any cartridge or casing from the chamber. Lock the action open. Observe the chamber to ensure it is empty. Verify that the feeding path is clear. Examine the bore. With a double-action semi-automatic, a pull of the trigger produces two actions. The hammer is pulled back and then falls. After firing, the action cocks itself and can be fired as a single action. The hammer may also be decocked and cocked manually, thus operating as a single-action handgun. A double-action only pistol cannot be used as a single-action. With some double-action semi-automatic handguns, there may be a decocking device. These are common on modern models. Instead of carefully, manually decocking the hammer, as with other types of handguns, you need only depress the decocking lever. The decocking lever safely lowers the hammer. Information found on the data stamp and cartridge head stamp allows you to check that the proper ammunition will be used. The data stamp on the barrel of this double-action semi-automatic handgun indicates the ammunition to be utilized is a .45 auto cartridge. Correct information about the firearm's ammunition can be found on the ammunition box. To match the correct ammunition to the firearm, refer to the information printed on this ammunition box and the head stamp of the cartridge. During our discussion of firearms, we have referred to the rules that apply to each and every firearm, the vital 4 acts. Let's review them now. Assume every firearm is loaded. Control the muzzle direction at all times. The trigger finger must be kept off the trigger and out of the trigger guard. See that the firearm is unloaded. Prove it's safe. To unload a firearm and prove it safe, point the firearm in the safest available direction. Remove all cartridges. Observe the chamber. Verify the feeding path. Examine the bore. Point, remove, observe, verify, and examine. Essential steps to prove a firearm safe. Shooting at a firing range. Individual firing ranges may vary in rules and procedures, but all have a clearly designated firing line. Many have a ceasefire line, and all have a downrange area, which is where targets are positioned. The safest available muzzle direction from the firing line is toward the downrange area. Some ranges may require that each person sign in upon arrival. Glasses with side shields are shown here and provide more security than those without. Before entering a firing range, you must equip yourself with proper safety gear. Protection for your eyes and ears is an essential part of range safety. Check the status of the firing line and enter only when it is safe to do so. Whenever a range is in use, someone must be named as the range officer. Upon approval of the range officer, firearms may be brought onto the range and taken to the firing point on the firing line. At this range, a red flag means caution. The range is active. Firearms must only be loaded at the firing line. Ensure safe muzzle direction, and when ready, request that a ceasefire be called. In an emergency, anyone can call a ceasefire and must be obeyed by everyone at the range. The range officer will call a ceasefire.
Ceasefire.
At the ceasefire command, all firing stops at once. Firearms are proved safe. Actions are left open, and all firearms are laid on the mat or table immediately in front of each shooter. Muzzles are pointed in a safe direction downrange. Shooters are required to move back from the firing line and behind the ceasefire line. The range officer inspects each firearm to ensure that each action is open and that all ammunition has been removed. Once satisfied, the range officer exchanges the red flag with a green flag to indicate that the range is inactive. At this point, shooters may proceed downrange to change targets. A verbal command to this effect is provided by the range officer. Persons not engaged in changing targets downrange should be well behind the ceasefire line. During a ceasefire, firearms may not be handled under any circumstances. Some ranges have equipment that changes targets automatically. However, most ranges require that you move downrange to manually set up targets. When the downrange area is clear, the range officer will change to the red flag and call the range active. Only then may the firing line be approached and firing begin. As this double-action revolver has left the owner's direct control, it is important for her to follow the vital 4 acts and prove the firearm safe as soon as she comes back in contact with it. Remember to check that the correct ammunition is being used. Once you are comfortable and ready to fire, move the safety to the firing position and align your sights on the target. Safe storage of restricted firearms. Owning a firearm means being responsible for it at all times, including its storage. Personal standards that exceed basic safety practices are the hallmark of a responsible firearm owner. In order to store any firearm, it must first be unloaded. Remember, each time a firearm is handled, the vital 4 acts must be observed. Prove it safe. Restricted firearms may be stored in one of 2 ways. Use a secure locking device to disable the firearm and store it in a securely locked container, receptacle, or room that cannot be easily broken open or into. In this example, a steel storage cabinet is being used. Ammunition for a restricted firearm may be stored in a place where it is not within easy access to the firearm. Ammunition may be stored together with or separately from the firearm in a securely locked container or receptacle that cannot be easily broken open or into. Restricted firearms and ammunition may also be stored together or separate from each other in a securely locked vault, safe, or room specifically built or adapted for the secure storage of restricted firearms. Display of restricted firearms. Every firearm on display in your home must be unloaded and cannot be displayed with nor be within easy access to ammunition that can be discharged from that firearm. Restricted firearms must be prevented from firing by using a secure locking device, such as a cable or trigger lock, so they cannot be operated. Displayed firearms must be attached to a non-portable structure that cannot be easily removed. All displayed firearms must be kept secure. Transportation of restricted firearms. When transporting a restricted firearm, the firearm must be unloaded and locked with a secure locking device. It must be transported in a locked container made of an opaque material that cannot be easily broken open or into. If left in an unattended vehicle, the locked container carrying the restricted firearm must be locked in the trunk of the vehicle. If the unattended vehicle does not have a trunk, the locked container must be kept out of sight, and the vehicle or the part of the vehicle that contains the container must be locked. Remember, proper documentation is required to transport restricted firearms. Always follow the vital 4 acts in the safe use of firearms. Assume every firearm is loaded. Control the muzzle direction at all times. The trigger finger must be kept off the trigger and out of the trigger guard. See that the firearm is unloaded. Prove it safe. To prove the firearm unloaded, point the firearm in the safest available direction. Remove all cartridges. Observe the chamber. Verify the feeding path. Examine the bore. Point, remove, observe, verify, and examine. Each step in that order contributes to prove a firearm safe. This completes the program. Thank you for your attention. And remember, always aim for safety.